So, welcome back to the podcast. And I have a new setup. As you can see, so right now it's set up to be for like when I have a guest on, as you can see with the chair over here. And so, in today's episode, we're going to be talking, I'm going to be talking about the first times I've been sexually assaulted and sexually harassed. So, yeah. So the first time that I was sexually assaulted was when I was at my ex-boyfriend's house. He was actually my first boyfriend. And so I didn't know what he was gonna do. He unzipped my pants, pulled them down, and started to suck my dick. Started to tell him no, and to stop, but he didn't. He just kept going, and then later on in the day, he did apologize, but it wasn't like that. Didn't really affect me because later on, I did actually let him suck my dick. So that time it was consensual, but and we did it to each other later on in the relationship, and I really wasn't affected by that much, but it was the fact that I didn't consent to it the first time that it was considered sexual assault. But we still continued dating, so it wasn't really that big of a deal to me. It was the fact that the trauma came from was the fact that I was sexually harassed for my past workplace. So I was a busser at the restaurant. I was cleaning off a table that had a party of like I think 10 or 13 people. And the guy, I guess, was probably drunk. He came up behind me and slapped my ass, which that in a split second, my emotions went from being pissed off and wanting to bitch slap him to the realization, the thought of, well, if I do that, I could get fired. So I didn't retaliate. All I did was really tell my coworkers what happened, which they got pissed off. They were like, yeah, I would have had the same feeling too. But other than that, it was the fact that I didn't really have control over that portion. Um with that, it really isn't. There really the only thing that the restaurant could do is kick him out, but I didn't really get a clear picture to really see who it was. It, but now that I look back at it, it's either two. It was one of two people that I think it was. Yes, I've talked to them before, but I didn't really do anything to cause it to happen. Like, oh, you were probably doing something that made them do that. No, he was more than likely drunk because it was near the bar area of the restaurant, so it was like very traumatic for me because I had no control over it. But there have been a lot of times that I've been watching like a show that has it that talks about it, and it'll just bring back the trauma. which really isn't fair for me. It's not really fair for anybody who has to go through that. But there are a lot of shows, and there have been quite a bit of songs that have been written about like sexual assault and sexual harassment. There, I know, is Euphoria, which actually McKay gets assaulted or harassed by his frat brothers. There is Sweet Vicious, I know, which takes place on a college where the main character, gets sexually assaulted and she ends up partnering with another campus mate and becoming a vigilante, as they called it, and pretty much beating up other people who have been sexually assaulting other girls on the campus. Speaking of which, there's also a documentary on HBO Max that talks about, like, that gives statistics and actual recollections of what happens on, like, colleges, which really pisses me off. Like, the colleges are just throwing it aside, like, oh yeah, sure, you must have been doing something to make that happen. In the documentary, it's the documentary The Hunting Ground, if you guys were wondering. It gives really descriptive statistics, and the girls actually, there's some, like two pair of girls on the campus of, I want to say, University of North Carolina, that banded together to create a organization for survivors, which this is actually the color for survivors. The blue is the color for survivors. There's also, I want to say, I May Destroy You, which is actually the creator and producer slash writer of the show, actually wrote it in a fictional way about what happened to her, which is actually pretty cool. Like, I want to be able to write stories about, like, real life stuff, but fictionally. Like, the way that she did it was very well put. It also has a character on there, a male character on there, where the same thing happens to her, like him, where he gets sexually assaulted, and the cops don't want to believe him, and they just put it aside, like, oh, you must have been doing something, must have been your fault, this, that, and the other. Like, no, it's not like that. But it just goes to realize, like, just goes to show how the government nowadays handles a lot of the sexual assault cases. Like, oh yeah, a year later they actually wanted to prosecute this person. But in the colleges, they just look at it in the guy's perspective, and they're like, especially the football players, they're just like, oh, you don't know how this is gonna impact his life. Da, 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 da. Oh, but yeah, it's fine for them to impact the girl's life or the guy's life. Like, shut the fuck up, colleges. You guys really need to learn how to handle this type of stuff in your colleges. Like, it's not right for the girls to have to go through that trauma day after day, reliving it, sometimes through their dreams, sometimes through, like, stuff that happens in their day-to-day life, while the guy just goes ahead and lives the rest of his day like, oh yeah, I did that. Especially in the frats. Like that type of stuff has to stop, especially with the frat brothers. Like I don't care if you guys don't agree with me. The type of stuff that the frats do really needs to stop. So there's those shows, Sweet Vicious, The Hunting Ground, Euphoria talks about it. There's also been, like I said, I May Destroy You. There's also, I want to say, Demi Lovato's, like Demi Lovato actually talks about her sexual assault. So it happened to her twice. She talks about it on her documentary, Dancing with the Devil, her recent one that came out last year in, I want to say, April. So she talks about how she wasn't really able to consent to either one of them. With what she did with the first one when she was on the what is assumed to be when she was on the show, well, movie Camp Rock, that one of the castmates raped her, and what she did to try to take back control is that she tried messaging him and tried fucking him instead. That way she felt like she was back in control. And she did the same thing with the last one when which was actually when she had overdosed the last time. Um, Another show that actually talks about sexual assault, well, portrays it, is Sex Education on Netflix. So that show actually caused my trauma to resurface, which was not fun. It was literally the last week of New Year's, so yeah, that wasn't really fun at all. Nope. There was it's also Sex Lives of College Girls with also on HBO Max, which actually portrays a comedian being sexually assaulted and the whole competition that they're doing. The guy ends up pulling out his dick and rubbing it against her, which she did not appreciate. They did end up getting the guy kicked off of the competition. There is, if you guys have been through the have been sexually assaulted, there is the hotline where you could call 1-800-656-4623. Even talking to a friend about what happened really did help me. So talking to like somebody that's really close to you, who you actually trust. I know when I told my parents about what happened at the restaurant, they're like, "Oh, what did you get his number? Maybe he could pay for this and the other for you." Like, shut the fuck up. No way am I in hell would I ever take my sexual harasser's number so that he could pay for this, that, and the other. No, what I would have done had I known back then, is I would have told my manager and had him kicked out of the restaurant and never to have been allowed to return again. So there is a couple songs that actually have talked, like I said before, that actually talk about sexual harassment. So there's Rihanna's "Man Down" when she was talking about her ex sexually abusing her, where she, I think, did she take him to court? I'm not quite sure, but I know that there was something that happened. Like I know they broke up, but I don't know exactly what happened. But I know that the song was about when he was sexually abusing her, and she literally had bruises on her for like everybody could tell. There's Demi Lovato's 15 Minutes, which is actually in the Dancing with the Devil album, that she talks about how she was taking back control of her, like taking her power back and everything. There is also Lady Gaga's "Till It Happens to You," which is actually um, put into the documentary "The Hunting Ground" that I was telling you about. The so it with that song, it pretty much is talking about how you don't know how it feels until really until it happens to you. Like it's in the title, "Till It Happens to You," and it does go perfectly with the hunting ground, and because again in the documentary, all of the girls start banding together and telling their story about what happened at this college, and pretty much all that the colleges did was, oh yeah, we'll expel the guy for such and such amount of time, but then yeah, we can only, but then we'll have to bring them back. Like we're not gonna go public about it because it's gonna ruin the college's reputation, which is really stupid. Like you care more about your reputation than your own students. What happened to looking out for your students? Like, come on. Colleges, you need to really do better in that. And then there is also Queen Latifah's Unity song, Unity, which talked about how a guy slapping her ass, which in a way happened to me, which caused me to actually write a song about it, but I don't know if I'm gonna make this song or not because it is very emotional, but it also needs like this step of stuff needs to be talked about more, especially with the male community. They with us and them, they often push it like hold back their emotions because oh it's feminine to show emotions, to cry about something. No, it's really just human emotions. Like you have all the right in the world to show your emotions. But again, if it has happened to you, you could always call the sexual assault or sexual harassment hotline, which is 1-800-656-4623. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody that you don't know on the phone, you could always talk to a friend. Um, if this type of stuff has also happened to you, if you want it to be like have it talked about in the podcast, you could always text 561-320-7085, and it can actually end up in another podcast of its own where I talk about other people's like all of your guys' stories, especially like I want to separate the viewers from the listeners. So if you're viewing that, like watching this, and you feel comfortable commenting on the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel with this video, just leave a comment down below. But if not, just DM the podcast Instagram, First Chances with Chance, where I will actually save your story and actually save it for a podcast, like I was saying. Plus, a lot of this stuff is good to be talked about because then it brings awareness for it. So, again, it's happened to me, so feel comfortable to let me to even text the number, which I will again. It's 561-320-7085, and I hope you guys listen. And if you haven't listened to the first 2 episodes, go ahead and listen to it now. And yeah, bye guys. Thanks for listening or watching.